Hi, hello, and welcome, or welcome back, I suppose. We're carrying on with our read up to Halloween, and we're certainly taking a rather different step into the world of horror this week compared to last. That's something I've been really enjoying about this. Even if I don't enjoy the books, I'm getting such a range of reads that can all still technically fit under one umbrella. And this week we're diving into a book that looks at the wellness industry, Western beauty standards, and the difficulty with maintaining one's roots while trying to fit in as the child of immigrants. We're looking at Natural Beauty by Ling Ling Huang. Spoiler warning and viewer discretion advised, as we'll be talking about sexual assault, racism, and probably just some really gross bodily stuff as well, though not in too much detail, don't worry. Our narrator, who we never get a name for beyond a surname, grew up in New Jersey with her Chinese parents who escaped the Cultural Revolution. Do not expect me to be able to make any comment on that aspect of this book. I can talk about her trying to keep ties to her parents, culture, heritage, that kind of thing, but I really don't know all that much about Mao's China, so I can't really talk on it at all. Anyway, her father worked as a piano teacher, and the biggest way her parents connected was through music. It's what saw them through the hardest times before they made it to the States, and they later passed this knowledge and love and passion onto their daughter, and she takes to it like a fish to water. And in posting some of her lessons online for family to see, she ends up going rather viral, eventually leading to her gaining a spot at the conservatory in New York. It's a performing arts school, and she is one of the youngest there at only 12 years old. Eventually, though, she quits music after her parents end up in a car accident, which she blames herself for, though it isn't really true that it's her fault, but it makes sense why she internalized that. While working at a diner, she's scouted by a woman named Sage, with a J rather than a G, who remembers her skill on the keys and talks with her about how she seems to be the perfect fit for her business, Holistic, with a K, which is a high-end wellness brand. Our narrator takes Sage up on this job offer, but this place isn't what it seems, and the cleansers sold here remove far more than makeup and dirt. There's a whole lot to dive into with this book, and if I weren't on a deadline, I'd probably do a much deeper dive going into the whole plot of everything, but I'm going to try and break this down into something a little more manageable for myself so I can get it edited and uploaded on time. So first, I want to talk about the ways in which Huang explores the difficulties with trying to remain connected to your roots as the child of immigrants, while also trying to fit in with the world around you and into beauty standards that aren't made for you. Narrator, who I will just name as such, gets to the conservatory and is immediately the subject of ridicule and bullying for a whole host of reasons. In her naive child brain, her thought is that if she can make herself visually fit in, then that'll do the trick. She tries to bleach her black hair, leaving it orange and deeply, deeply damaged. She gets rid of any Chinese food that her parents have left for her and kits out her wardrobe in a way that emulates that of her classmates. Of course, none of that really works, and she is still subjected to her classmates' vitriol, but it's the only thing she can think of that might help. She knows that it creates a disconnect, even just internally at first, with herself and her parents, but it feels like the right thing to do. I bleached my hair black, which turned orange where it didn't fall out. Looking back, it seems like I had instinctively known that the most effective place to prune myself was at the root. That attempt to whitewash herself may not have been successful, but that's where Holistic comes in. When she joins, it does just seem like an overly sort of woo-woo, high-end wellness and beauty brand where all of the staff are tall, slender white women with blonde hair and blue eyes. It's all very goop. All of them look cannily alike, but if you look at wellness influencers, it does kind of feel like that. So it's weird, but not too much of a red flag. Yeah. But You know what I mean. Until Sage, the brand owner, is bringing narrator into the store for her first day. Sage's eyes glow with pleasure as she looks me up and down. You already fit in so beautifully. As you can see, we favour an international staff. I look around, but none of the other staff seem particularly international to me. If anything, I seem like a clear diversity hire. I lower my head in agreement like a good minority. And my immediate thought was either that Sage is making a weird racist joke, being like, look, they're so international and they're all like pretty blonde white girls, or that some weird shit is going on and somehow they're homogenizing everyone here. And I was like, this is, like, my second theory there was based on nothing but the fact that I know I'm reading a horror about the beauty industry, but I was 10 pages in. I couldn't have really based it on anything. But when you're right, you're right. And we will dive deeper into that later. But let's stick with just the narrator in particular right now. Because Holistic requires all of its staff to take a personalised range of supplements and apply specialised creams, skincare, all that kind of stuff. And as the book goes on, narrator appears less and less like herself. She becomes one of the Aryan girls from the shop. She is the perfect Western beauty, but she isn't herself, and certainly not appearing at all Chinese anymore. She loses the features in particular that tie her to her parents, her smile, her eyes, her round face, all morphed into something that bears no resemblance to them or the woman she once was. She also talks about how, while other East Asian girls at the conservatory opted for surgery to change this, during her holistic changes, she notices that she no longer has monolids either, another sign of her heritage in a way, I guess, if that makes sense. Like, monolids aren't really found outside of East Asia as far as I'm aware, and at the very least, her, like, this being gone really does just show that they're trying to wash away any signs that she's anything other than this, like, quote unquote perfect white girl. And ideal beauty is the thing that so many people strive for, and in doing so can lose who they fundamentally are. I can't talk too much on the experience of being the child of immigrants, because I am not one, but Huang delves into that so well. But her just losing touch with her family through her change broke me. Her parents are hospitalised through much of the book and struggle to recognise her when they see her looking like herself. There's a connection there that she's never going to be able to get back, but now she can't even look in the mirror and see that she carries them forward. And I think that hit me in particular, because the older I get, the more I take pride in the fact that I am very clearly my mother's son. As the years go by, I'll always have a part of her with me. My smile, my eyes, my round cheeks, they're all hers too. The less narrator looked like herself, the more my heart broke for her in that regard. And the way the book rounds off ties that together so nicely. She's been so changed by that point. She is not that bombshell beauty, but she has gone through something far deeper. And in her words, if I can't look like my parents, I don't want to look like anyone. And while Huang goes into the personal side of this with our narrator, the ways in which we contort ourselves to fit a beauty norm that isn't meant for anyone, there is just a much larger conversation being had about the way this beauty standard is remarkably white. The owner of the company that owns Holistic and other subsidiaries that are important to the wider plot, I can't remember the name of the overall company, but the two main companies that we need to be interested in are Holistic, which is the beauty brand, and Apothecary, which is worse. We'll get to it. I can't remember if I say that word in the script, but if I talk about a clinic later on, that's it. But this is Victor, this owner, and he is, well, let's just say he'd probably be one of Hitler's favourites, because not only is he the most Aryan motherfucker in existence, his goal is to make everything and everyone around him, quote unquote, beautiful. And when that comes to people, that means looking just like him. We meet Helen and Henry, they're twins, and they're his niece and nephew. And it isn't surprising that they're not only strikingly beautiful, especially Helen, but the more the book goes on, the more it's clear that Helen, in particular, is so beautiful because of her taking holistic supplements. But it seems like his family were, at the very least, white to start out with, just not his ideal kind of beautiful. However, let's look back and recall Sage's line near the beginning of the book. We favour an international staff. Now, we know what happened to Narrator, so 3 guesses on what's going on with the rest of the team there. All of the retail staff there seemingly started out as non-white, and most of them seem to be, like Narrator, East Asian in some way, though not all of them are also Chinese. The more time spent with the company, the more they end up fitting into that Western beauty standard. You know, basically, you can imagine that all of them could make ads selling jeans. They're even made to change their name. They aren't going to look, say, Korean, Chinese, whatever, anymore. So it would look odd if they had a Korean name, a Chinese name. So they become Tanner, or I think one of them's called Melissa, and Anna is the name they try to foist onto Narrator. And honestly, the biggest horror of this book isn't any of the gross body horror stuff or anything like that. I know beauty suppliers love cleansing, but not like that. And Huang does so well at getting into just how sinister this whole thing is by showing us how they make everything so inviting. Everything here isn't just a way to shop, it's a whole experience that can change your life. Like I said, it's all so goop, and she plays into all of that so well. Only the claims are true in this case. Like, it's less steaming your vag and putting jade eggs up there will actually work, and this is more sort of repulsive and more deadly. Even though putting jade eggs up, you can actually cause major issues, and I imagine steaming your vag can cause major issues as well. But Sage in particular is such a manipulation master in bringing people in. Oh, this will just help you grow spiritually, financially, and help you to help your parents. And it's just her fucking sex trafficking people at the end of the day. Like, Sage is the Ghislaine to Victor's Jeffrey. They take these girls, finding them when they're young, and groom them into becoming exactly what they need. Victor is one of the main funders of the conservatory, and he found Narrator when she was very young and basically groomed her into becoming the perfect candidate for what he wants now. And he's also, unsurprisingly, a pedophile. I'm not American. He is also, unsurprisingly, a paedophile himself, and it is heavily implied that he raped the Narrator, and it is vile, but that's not gone into too much detail with, and I think that's handled very well. And there are other aspects like that handled well later on, which I'll get to. But they take these girls, like I said, finding them when they're young, they groom them into becoming exactly what they need. And it seems at first like they're just getting a retail opportunity, until some of them are invited to make more money if they seem like suitable candidates. It's presented to them as if it's like a high-class escorting type deal. It's just described as sex work, which is far from the truth, quite frankly. And the pitch from Sage to narrator is so vile. It's clear she's a grade A manipulative cow, and unfortunately that means she gets what she wants, which in this case is a contract signed while these girls are unknowingly drugged up and aren't able to remember what goes on when they are, as far as they're aware, with clients. They are in fact, there's no great way to say this, being impregnated with less than human substances. It seems like there's some human element in what they're being impregnated with, but there's also a fair amount of animal in there as well. Victor claims that this experiment will result in women being able to have shorter but still successful pregnancies with babies who, by the time they're toddlers, will appear human enough to pass through society without notice. Now, I will say the impregnation is done via a machine rather than any kind of being, as it were, but it's still grim. And we do see this act being performed on narrator twice, I believe. She wakes up during the procedure once, which is where she finds out she is not with any clients, and later on she feigns passing out, and I can't remember if she escapes before or after the procedure happens in that case. Though disturbing, I think Huang handles it all very well. It's cold and clinical, and though I was deeply uncomfortable by it, I feel like it wasn't overdone. It was shocking to read, but it didn't feel like that was its only purpose. We have a whole conversation going on throughout this book about the way that women are basically products, no different to, say, a work of art to be viewed and used by men as they please. And the gross factor of the substances being used to inseminate these women is like, it's grim, but it's like, yeah, we've had weird stuff going on in this book so far that is also grim. It fits into the body horror aspect of this. Like, by that point, we've already seen a grown woman breastfeed a gibbon. And yes, I am wondering how I ended up upon weird breastfeeding shit twice in a row, but like, fine, I guess. But I will also say, when she showers the morning after her first time at Apothecare, is it Apothecare or Apothecary? I can't remember. I think it's Apothecare. But the first time at the clinic, there is something that made me want to zip myself closed forever. She's showering and trying to clean her genitals as she woke up with blood between her legs, having no clue how she even made it home. And while cleaning the blood, she finds, like, seeds, what it seems like, and has to sort of scoop them out of herself. And she asks what that was when she returns to the clinic, and they tell her it's like, oh, it's just papaya seeds from our all natural toys, which I was just disgusted by that, to be honest. Like, stick to the silicon, you freak. And if everything has to be super natural, glass toys exist, glass is natural. Keep the fruit out of you. And that obviously isn't even what that stuff is. It seems to be something related to octopus or something, but even so, don't fucking stick papaya seeds in. No, it's gross. I do also just love the way that Huang builds the horror in this book. She knows that you know what kind of book you're reading, and her breadcrumbs play into that so nicely. There's stuff that would feel off in any book, but there's also plenty that makes you side-eye that could be played off elsewhere. Like I said with the staff look, I only assumed they're being changed to look like Aryan bombshells because I know I'm reading horror. When narrator is making her way to the staff room, she passes a room called the zoo, and I was immediately just like, no, absolutely the fuck not, what's going on in there? And yeah, obviously nothing good. Animal testing is the least of anyone's worries, quite frankly. Well, it is still animal testing, but they're not like putting creams on them or anything. It's much worse than that, and quite frankly, one of the gibbons in there is being breastfed, so you know what? Nothing good's happening. And I've not even touched on a point where she ends up basically in a forest outside, like in the farms where a lot of the stuff is being produced, and there's some weird shit going on with the deer there. And we never get to the bottom of that, and I don't want to. I think it's because they're eating people. I think they're finding scraps of people and eating them, and then when they see Sage, they've become meat eaters, but I don't believe that's ever confirmed. But good lord, that was terrifying. That's such a good scene. But she is so good at peppering things in, sometimes more overtly signalling what will be important, and other times just sort of letting something be stated only to come back up later, either way leaving me going, oh wait, hang on, yes, or having that little bit of satisfaction that I picked up on that something earlier. Some reveals are like a little mix of the two. I was particularly pleased to figure out what Lilith had going on. She's part of Victor's family, but she is adopted in and plays things so well. I mean, things don't go great for her, but to be fair, that's true of literally everybody in this book. So, you know, that's part of the course, I guess. And there is also a good amount of humour in this too. It is often quite dark, but it all fits in with the style super well. The narrative voice is one that could easily be found in a non-horror book, like I would say maybe like a modern slice of life type book, any good romance books. It's somewhat casual and easygoing, but it is very clearly super in touch with everything it explores. So when things are being joked about and satirized, it's pulled off absolutely brilliantly. Also, I will say, if you are really put off by things like body horror, I think you'll still be okay with this one. There is still some grossness, but it isn't in such minute detail that you'll be completely turned away. I actually think this is a great way to ease yourself into horror in general, and maybe body horror in specific, if it is something that you tend to avoid. Also, I think it was last year, maybe the year before, that I read Touch of Jen and I read We Had to Remove This Post. I think if you read and enjoyed either of those, then I think this will be right up your alley. They're not the same thing, but I think the vibe is kind of similar, I guess. This may well actually be one of my favourite books I've read this year. It'll certainly be hard to beat in my Halloween reads, and it's up against some hard hitters in the genre, but something about it just fully engrossed me, and I will need to get myself a copy of this so I can read it again in the future, because I'm sure there's stuff I missed that'll make me go, wait, when I reread it. Next week, we're looking at a short story collection called Out There Screaming, which is compiled by Jordan Peele. It's a horror anthology by black authors, and I love me a short story collection, especially a horror short story collection. I think that's literally how I started this year off, was with a horror anthology, so I'm very excited for that. Let me know if you've read, let me know your opinion of this book if you've read it, but also let me know if you've read anything like this before, because I am very much interested in finding more. And if Ling Ling Huang has more horror, I also need to get my hands on that, because oh my god. And of course, just give me general horror recommendations. I always want more. Also, feel free to like, feel free to subscribe, and feel free to ring that notification bell. All that cringe shit I'm supposed to ask you to do in my videos. But most importantly, I hope you have a wonderful day, a wonderful night, a wonderful whenever you are watching this. Take good care of yourself. Right.